So thank you for your time this evening. Just wanted to provide you with some information on a new initiative that we are referring to as motor vehicle gap billing. To describe what that is, I think a little history is in order. So as you may be aware, back in 2013, the North Carolina legislation changed the way that motor vehicle taxes were billed for registered motor vehicles. The new system, referred to as tax and tag, now has registered motor vehicle owners that pay their annual property taxes at the time when they register a vehicle or when they renew their registration. Since that transition, there are instances in which registered motor vehicles have their registrations expire, and then sometime later, those vehicles are re-registered with a new registration date. So what that creates is a period of time in which the registration has lapsed, in which we call a gap in that registration. So that's a period of time in which the property is not taxed through the current tag and tax system. So the county is required by statute 105-330 to collect property taxes for vehicles that have even a short lapse in that registration. However, until the past year, we simply didn't have the machinery to make that happen. We didn't have a way to do that. We now receive monthly reports from DMV, which identify those gaps in registration. So we have the ability to begin to acquire some of that lost revenue that we've experienced. So technically how we're going to do this is when we receive the report from the DMV that explains what the period of the gap is. For example, say if that's a 4-month period in which the vehicle wasn't registered. We'll take the value of the vehicle on January 1st of that year that we received the report. We'll divide that by 12 to establish the monthly value, and then we'll multiply the period of the gap that was in place by that monthly value to establish the prorated value for the vehicle for the period of time that it wasn't being taxed. We'll then create a tax bill based on the current tax rates for both county and municipalities and send those out to the taxpayers. Those will become tax bills that are due on the next September 1st from the time when they're created. So this month when we create these gap bills, we'll send them out. They'll become regular 2019 personal property bills. They'll be due on September 1st and past due next January 6th. So our plan is to start this process this month in November. So towards the end of November, we're going to send what will be our largest batch. We're going to start with July 1st, this past July through October, send 4 months worth of gap bills. And then we plan to continue on a monthly basis as we get those DMV reports to bill these gap bills. So we get the information to the taxpayers as soon as possible at the time, as close to the time when the gap took place, that they have that information and have that bill. So this being a new process, we're a little unclear at this point what the total revenue impact will be, particularly in the long term. Based on the current information we have and the information we're getting ready to bill, we're going to have what looks to be about 300 to 350 bills per month. Potential there being around $15,000 in revenue for the county portion of those bills. So this could be a significant revenue piece that we've been unable to capture previously that we will now have the opportunity to do so.
So on the old system, when we were billing directly and it wasn't with the licensing or the registration, didn't matter whether these gaps didn't occur because we billed anyway?
That's correct. So this is a situation that was created by the new system being put in place. It's taken a while to catch up with the technology to be able to identify those and then to be able to bill them properly.
So I know you said the goal was to get them out as soon as possible,
Yes,
so that they'll know that this extra bill is coming through that they may not be expected. Is there I take it there's some explanation inside of that, like what we have here that'll
Sure.
tell
So
them?
we've put together some general question and answers. We're going to have some information on the website. We're finishing the design of the actual bill that we're going to be sending out to try to provide as much detail as possible about what it is while still making that clear and understandable. So when we send those bills out, there'll be explanations there. We're going through a period of training all of our staff to be able to answer any questions if we have questions from the taxpayer. And this, taking an opportunity like this just to make folks aware that this is coming.
And then with the 300 to 350 per month, so that's about, what, 4,000 or so a year. What percentage of that is your tax bills that go out? Any idea?
It's a very small percentage of.
That's okay.
This is not a large percentage of motor vehicles that experience this. It's only in a case in which that registration expires, and there's a period of time, and when they go to the DMV to re-register the car, a new registration date is given as opposed to using the original date.
So that's what triggers it when they re-register?
That's correct. So at the point when they re-register is when the DMV will then notify us what period of time was existing in that gap between the last time their registration expired until the point when they've re-registered. So that could be any number of 1 month and up until multiple years, depending upon the actions of the vehicle owner.
So would that impact people that collect, car collectors that don't have tags on them, they just have them in storage? That's, if they decide to put a tag on it, then that could trigger a couple of years.
So in those instances, those vehicles are currently listed and taxed through our regular personal property taxes.
Okay.
And that would not be a case in which this would apply. This would simply apply to a vehicle whose registration expired. It had been paying taxes through that tag and tax system.
Right.
And there's a period of time in which those taxes weren't paid. If we can show that the property was listed as personal property, then that certainly wouldn't be an instance in which
Right.
we would bill.
Any other questions for David?
I do, Mr. Chairman. David, first off, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing a good job for us in the tax office there. My question is relative to the system that you are going to be able to do this gap tax with.
Sure.
Will it have a way to determine the feasibility of sending a bill out to someone? What I mean is, if they 2 weeks or 3 weeks behind, and the tax bill's 30 cents, and it's going to cost us $1 to send out the letter.
Sure.
Is there a way that we can limit that, number one? And then it would seem like that it would be carried forward to the next billing cycle versus billing for it right then, because that's going to offset the revenue with the expense.
So to the first part, we do have a policy in place, a resolution, that we don't send property tax bills out for less than $5. And that will apply in this instance as well. So there are a number of these that a gap is created, but because of either the value of the vehicle or the length of time, it's just not going to create an instance in which we create a tax bill. So we will have some limits on that. In terms of the revenue applying to the period, so the reason that this is set up to do this is, for example, the bills that we'll be creating this month will not be due. They'll be 2019 tax bills. They'll not be due until next year. The benefit of that is for the taxpayer to have a period of time in which they have to pay that tax bill without getting it at the end of the month or end of the year, and it becomes then a delinquent tax bill within a short period of time. This gives them ample opportunity to address that bill and for us to collect on it.